Hi everyone. I have a little thought for you for this week's Torah portion of Ki Tisa. This week's Torah portion literally means to count, but on a deeper level, in a deeper sense, it means to uplift. The idea is that when people count, when they matter, when they realize that they make a difference, that can be very uplifting. As the old saying goes, don't count the days, instead make your days count. I think I saw that somewhere on Facebook. Counting something can go two ways. It can turn things into meaningless and mindless numbers, just a bunch of stats on a chart, or it can be very meaningful, it can be very empowering when you realize that each and every one of these things count. That even if one were missing, you'd notice it. Like a letter in a Torah scroll. You know that there are 305,806 letters. And if one letter is missing from a Torah scroll, the Torah scroll can't be read. It would be a great loss if that one letter was missing. So it's the same issue with politics. A lot of people don't feel that their vote matters. It's a huge electorate. The party enrollment is lopsided one way or another. My single vote won't sway it either way. So therefore, why should I vote? A lot of young people say that. And it's only when elections are close, when things are down to the wire, that all of a sudden people start getting interested. The interest perks up and people start turning out. They say, hold on a second. It's not like I thought it was. Maybe my vote does matter. And maybe at that point, there are people who feel like their vote could be the deciding vote. You find the same thing with job satisfaction. Of course, money is the biggest motivator in the world. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. But you might be surprised on how high recognition and appreciation rank with regards to people's job satisfaction. People like to feel that they are wanted or that they are needed and that they're making a significant impact and a difference that others can recognize and others can value. It's one of the best, and I would say cheapest ways that employers can uplift their employee morale. Just by giving that kind of satisfaction, saying you value, you matter, you're important. Well, this week's Torah portion is about census. God tells Moshe to count the Jewish people, but the way they're counted and the word that the Torah uses with regards to the count is very important. There was a man by the name of Shlomo Telushkin, and he was the Rebbe's accountant. And one day, still in his working years, he suffered a stroke. He was in the hospital, and the Rebbe's office called every day to see how he was doing. A few days later, after he regained consciousness, the Rebbe's office said that they had an accounting question. Maybe it was a tax question. Shlomo's son Joseph, who later became the great author and lecturer Joseph Telushkin, he was a little taken aback. Come on. My father is still in recovery, he said. He's in the hospital. Couldn't you wait for your accounting question? But Shlomo the accountant, from his hospital bed, answered the question, and the Rebbe told the Rebbe's office what needed to be done. Sometime later, Shlomo's son Joseph was talking with one of the Rebbe's secretaries. And he says, what was so important that you had to bother my father while he was recovering with some accounting question? Couldn't it wait? My dad is in the hospital. He had a stroke. The Rebbe's secretary told him that they didn't have an accounting question. But the Rebbe told them to come up with some kind of question and to call the hospital and ask Shlomo. The question was bogus. The question was made up. And then finally Joseph understood. He realized why the Rebbe insisted that they ask his father the accounting question. His father must have been doubtful and worried in the hospital bed? Will he be able to go back to work? Will I be useful? Will I ever be needed again? And the Rebbe's office was calling so that he could be reassured that he was needed, that his advice was sought out, that he'd be able to get back to work. And that was an amazing idea. That the question wasn't about tax, it was about confidence. And such a question is not something that is difficult for someone. It's uplifting. Well, this week's Torah portion, with the census of the Jewish people, here's what's different about the census. God tells Moshe to tell the Jews to each give half a shekel coin to upkeep the Mishkan, to upkeep the tabernacle. These coins would be counted, and they would get the exact numbers of the Jewish people based on the coins that were given. Now, the usual Hebrew word for counting isn't used here. Instead, the word that is used is Sisa or Ki Tisa, which means to count, but also means to uplift. To count and to uplift. What's the message? The Nazis made their name be erased, dehumanized people by diminishing them, by making them an insignificant number. The Torah tells us to do the exact opposite when we count people. Have them contribute something. They should feel needed. Help them realize that they matter. Making people feel like they count is one of the most uplifting things that we can do. There are a lot of people in our lives, and it's very easy for them to feel lost in our own lives, or maybe around us they can feel lost in a crowd. Maybe you're in a situation at work or in school where you have people around and they're just another person that's in the desk next to you, or on the chair next to you, or the cubicle next to you. And often, sometimes, the boss or the professor, they have no idea who the person is. You know what it feels like when you're not recognized? When you feel that your presence or your absence is not felt? Now imagine what it feels like when your presence or your absence is felt. It's one of the most uplifting things, feeling like you can make a difference. And I would say that possibly the Rebbe's most often quoted piece of Rambam, of Maimonides' teachings, was that each person ought to always view the world in exact balance, that each deed, and hopefully a positive one, can tip the scale and make a difference. So today, I want you to think of ways that you can make a difference. And I know during this time in our lives, it's so much harder to make a difference. Not just to allow yourself or those around you to be another number. And most importantly, to think of ways that you can help those around you feel like they matter. Show them that they're needed, that they're cherished. Show them that they're wanted. Ki Tisa or Ki Sisa means to count, and it also means to uplift. Making people count is uplifting, both for you and both for the person that you are making count or uplifting. I urge you, try it. With that, I wish you a wonderful, enlightened Shabbat, a Shabbat full of light, full of love, and I hope that very soon we can be together in a way that we're not worried about health and we're not worried about all the issues, and all those who need a special blessing, that they should be able to receive that blessing. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.